Jay, welcome to the Nifty Travel Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. It's a first for me being on a travel podcast, to be honest with you.
Well, it's the first time for everything, Jay. And the first thing I like to ask my guests is about what your earliest memories of travel are.
My earliest memories of travel, I think for me, I was probably quite fortunate as a kid that my family did go abroad. I remember we used to go to Europe quite a lot, especially just countries like Spain and Greece, whereas lots of other families around us couldn't afford to do that. And my first memories of travel was really going to Greece. Now, there is positive and negative memories to that. I remember being in Rhodes and my mum having an asthma attack in the middle of Rhodes town, and very dramatic experience. But also there was also memories that I can recall of me being a young child. And while you've got all that amazing Greek food on offer, which I now appreciate, I just used to order eggs, chips, and beans. That's one of my earliest memories that I can remember visiting Greece, but also lots of other countries within Europe as well.
Well, whenever you go abroad, well, the first thing you realize as a kid, isn't it, is it's not the same as home, is it? And I think it's one of the reasons why we often remember them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that different environment, and also I think there's a novelty to it that we all experience, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people love travel is newness and novelty of going and experiencing different places and people and things and cultures. And I think as a kid, obviously, novelty is something that kids thrive on, and so I think new experiences were really good for us as kids, and definitely give you a wider perspective at some stage in life for sure.
They certainly do. Now, one thing I feel on fairly safe ground here is I feel that we both have an interest in technology. And one thing that has changed quite significantly is there's a lot of tech in travel these days. So, do you think it's a help or a hindrance?
If you just elaborate on the question a little bit, just so I can understand what you're referring to specifically, so I want to give you the best
Well,
answer.
yeah, well, it's mainly around there's a lot of choice in travel these days, and technology uh, can actually aid in your decision making process. It's almost like you can go on a site sometimes, and it's giving you so much assistance that if you let it, that it could, not only choose where you're going, but when and how, and almost who with. I just wondered whether are we going, have we gone from no help to too much help?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that for me, technology has changed a lot, and ultimately is making it a lot easier for us to experience a lot more of the things we want. Because let's be honest, a lot of the stuff out there in the world we might not even know exists without technology. And when I think about travel, I definitely think that travel has technology has done one of two things. It's really assisted us in discovering new places, but also that's very paradoxical in that it's also opened it up to lots of other people. And so what tends to happen is that the rare opportunities you might experience in travel to go and stumble across somewhere where there's no one there, but let's say the locals, are few and far between, because it's all over Instagram and people are exploring the world more than they ever have. And I think that for me, technology is something that definitely assists us, but also it does take away from maybe limit the opportunity to get those real travel experience. And I kind of liken it to I'm a scuba diver, so scuba dive all over the world with my wife when we travel. And one of the things we would often talk about is we would go to a place because they had said that you see a certain fish there, or a whale shark, or manta rays, or whatever the thing is we're trying to find. And we would go to that specific place, and then we'd go scuba diving, and we wouldn't see it. And we'd come away feeling really disappointed. But then we'd go diving somewhere else, and the thing that we went to see over there just all of a sudden spontaneously appeared out of nowhere and created those very special moments. And so I kind of liken it to that it's not always good to know that I'm going to go there and I'm going to see that thing. And scuba diving especially just allows for that spontaneity that I think so many people that travel really enjoy. I traveled the world for 2 years with my wife, and we were fortunate that we traveled like not high-end travel, but travelers, going off the beaten path a little bit. And what that opened up is just so much opportunity to meet new people, to learn new things, to experience new things. And they, of course, make for great stories. And those are the ones we really remember from all of the days of travel as well. So, yeah, I think that just to bring it back to your question, technology helps us in discovering new places. It helps us in booking. I'm someone who likes to be efficient, but I think it's kind of like a two-stage process. It's like you want to let those ideas, those dreams, those, explore in your mind what could happen, what might happen. But then when it comes to actually filtering out all the noise and getting to where you want to go, of course, it assists you in that way.
So that nicely leads to the next question. Are you a planner, or do you like spontaneity?
I'm not a planner. Luckily, I have a wife who's an engineer, and she's a serial planner. I'm a guy who kind of goes with the flow, and a guy who's maybe a little bit more of a dreamer than a serial planner. We always joke in this house, it took us a number of years to get to this. And I think that certainly traveling extensively really helped us. But I have the ideas, and my wife presents a PowerPoint presentation about what that could look like and what we're going to do there. And then I'm the guy that can make the decision, because my wife gets so caught up in all of the information and the research and the ideas and the reviews and this and that and the other, that we work quite well together, in that we'll go, oh, this would be great to go and do this thing. And she'll go and do all the research. She'll then pull it together. I'll help narrow the options, and then together we make a decision and move forward. But yeah, I'm definitely not a serial planner.
And when it comes to, because one thing I've discovered whilst traveling is that, the world is a big place, but you can go somewhere and you can see a crowd, and you almost have this mechanism going on in your head about, shall I follow the crowd, or shall I go down and explore down a side street? What sort of things happen to you when you're in that sort of scenario?
Yeah, really good question, actually. I think the human side of me and the need to do what other people are doing, because as human beings, naturally, when we feel uncertain, we normally look to the crowd on how to behave. I think that when you see people going in a certain direction, and let's say you think they've seen something, you'll feel uncertain. So you might have a tendency, when I say you have a tendency to want to go, oh, what are they looking at? But also there's that part of me that's a bit of an inner rebel, who, when everyone else is going east, I want to go west, right? When everyone else is like waiting forever to get a photo of something, like I go and do something different, because I'm not willing to wait in the line. I'll go around the other side of the statue that you're not allowed to be on, so that I can get the picture that I really want. And so I think there's two sides to it. There's like, sometimes I'll go, well, what are they looking at? And then there's the other side of me that's like, okay, do I really want to do what everybody else is doing, or do I want to go off the beaten path? So I wouldn't say it's like one hard, fast way in which I approach it, but certainly I do feel the pull of both.
Yeah, it's often about the moment, isn't it? As opposed to there being a right or wrong.
Yeah, and I was going to say that, like, we often found that there was different ways that people typically travel in terms of their experience, and I think that me and my wife realized that there's the people who come to the place to get the photo so they can put it on social media and share with all of their friends so they can go, well, look at me, I did this. And some of those people just spend lots of time getting a great photo. Then you've got the people who arrive and they're like, okay, I'm just going to get a photo for the family, a selfie or a nice photo. And then you've got the people that just show up for the experience. And we used to always have this question, me and my wife, of like, what are you missing out on by being stuck behind the lens, right? And that was just a question that stuck with us a lot, of like, should you take lots of photos or should you just enjoy the experience? And that was just an interesting path that used to take us on lots of different angles. Now, it turns out my wife was very much an experienced kind of person. And I was, hey, I want to remember these memories, so I document them. So we ended up with a lot of pictures of my wife and not a lot of pictures of me, which is okay. It's okay.
So when you're in the act of traveling, we obviously observe other people, but what do you think travel says about ourselves?
What does travel say about us? I think that to look at a person, someone who has a natural interest in travel, what that tells me is that they are curious. They're curious about the world. I'd say that they're open-minded. They value a certain level of freedom and autonomy because, that feeling of not having to be anywhere, to do anything. They're probably someone who values variety and the spice of life, as they say. And that's what it really tells me about the type of person that travels. It really tells me that they're willing to do the things that most people aren't willing to do. And I think that, I know we talk about travel in a very broad context here. Some people might just going on weekend trips or, going for a week at a time. Some people might like going away in big long trips for months at a time, sometimes even years. I think that for me, it depends really on the type of person, but I would probably say being open-minded, valuing variety, freedom, autonomy, and a keen interest in probably learning as well, learning about the world rather than just being stuck in a little village somewhere here in the UK, as an example.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talked about going to a couple of locations and not expecting to see the fish you were hoping to see. You did see it, but you saw it somewhere else. Is it a little bit like, I don't know, going to the top of a mountain and being sort of challenged in a way? Am I here to look at the view or to get a different perspective? Kind of how do you sort of, you arrive at that place? How do you normally feel?
How do I normally feel when I arrive at the top of the mountain, so to speak, or how do I feel on the journey?
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I think travel offers a range of emotions, but one of them is disappointment. And for me, here's the way I tend to see life. I see life as a dance, and I see life as like that. One of my favorite quotes is, "Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain." And the way I see this in relation to travel is that there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be times where you're feeling super grateful and you experience the thing you want to, and there's going to be times where you're disappointed because you didn't get the service, didn't get the outcome that you really wanted. And for me, as much as I hate disappointing, I hate not having the thing that I really want, that gives me the perspective I need to really value the times when I do get the thing. And so for me, it's not necessarily about I arrive at the destination, that's one thing, or the journey's another. It's really about, okay, this is all just part of the journey, so to speak. And I know at some point down the line, everything that goes up must come down, and everything that goes down must go up. It's like the stock market. And so it's only a matter of time before I get my next beautiful experience.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good way of looking at it. A few months ago, I had a chance to speak to a filmmaker, and I was telling him about, I love taking videos and photographs, but often when I get home, I see something that I didn't see at the time. And well, he just looked at me. Well, of course, I should have realized when I asked him the question is because, well, a filmmaker, they don't miss anything, right? Because it's all a set piece. But the rest of us, would you agree that we're so focused on why we are somewhere that actually when we come back and we look at what we've created, what we've set on into stone, we actually it's almost like we're experiencing that trip all over again, because suddenly, oh God, I didn't see that thing happening behind there. Does that experience does that resonate with you in any way?
I was just trying to think for a minute then, if I'd had that experience. I mean, I've certainly looked at pictures and gone, oh, how did I not notice that? I'd say it probably brings back, I wouldn't say it creates a new experience, but it kind of feels a little bit nostalgic for me, because I start to then get that experience of being in that place again and experience it over and over again. And I think that's probably what I experienced versus a completely different experience. I might see something, how did I not know that? And it might actually then make me go, I want to go and explore that some more, but it wouldn't necessarily create a completely different experience.
Yeah, maybe in a way it's telling us that we, as you say, we should go back. That the place or the journey we were on actually was a much deeper well than we first imagined. I have, there are favorite countries I like going to for that very reason, and there are places you think, well, okay, I'm glad I went, but tick the box. Don't need to repeat the experience.
Yeah, and I've definitely had countries like that. It's just like a tick box exercise. And that probably just tells me that my expectation going into that trip was probably pretty big in terms of what I expected out of that country. And then it obviously didn't deliver for one reason or other. And that doesn't bear any reflection on the country necessarily. It's just my personal experience. It's a bit like I went to Cambodia, and I wasn't sure what to expect in Cambodia, but I left with this strange feeling of like it wasn't what I wanted it to be, but it gave me something different. We visited the killing fields in Cambodia, and we explored, good and bad parts of Cambodia, but it gave us a new perspective. They live on less than $3 a day on average. And while it might not have given us the thing that we ultimately went for, it gave us something so much greater. And I think while, I can see that as more of a tick box, and we're like, hey, we went to Cambodia, that was on the list. And it didn't live up to the expectation of what we wanted. It gave us something completely different. And I think that's one of the beauties of travel, is that we all have these expectations of how it should be, and then we show up and it's not that, but it's really about finding the value in what experience you did have, and rather than going, oh no, it wasn't that, yeah, I'm just going to tick it off for now, like move on to the next thing. Yeah, it's interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it was an interesting surprise in a way.
Yeah, and I think that's travel for you, right? It's the spontaneity, there's the surprise. You never know what's around each corner, good and bad, and that's the beauty of travel. I think that's why so many love it.
Fantastic. Well, I thought I'd turn now to some sort of business type perspectives, because that's something we both also enjoy. Now, I was wondering about oratory, the lovely, the sound of our own voices. Often we're presented either on the internet or general advertising, lots of tools for making us better in business. And I was wondering about your thoughts as using oratory as a tool. Do you think business people are underselling themselves because they don't work on their voices enough?
So I think that communication is the single greatest skill you can master. And I say that, and it doesn't matter what we're talking about, whether we're talking about business, whether we're talking about life. The way I see it is every single one of our problems can be solved through a conversation, and that requires you to communicate in some way. And it's either a conversation with yourself or a conversation with someone else. And in business, everybody has the answers to your problems. They absolutely do. It's kind of like, if I want to make more, generate more cash flow in the business, make more money, then it's quite simple, really. I just need to go and communicate with other people. And it's going to have a conversation with enough people who have a problem that I solve, and then make them a compelling offer to come and buy my specific solution. And if you're not making the money, or you're not at where you really want in business, it's really that simple. And if that if you're not getting the result, then it's probably not the conversation with the other person that's the problem. It's probably the conversation that you're having in your own head. And so what I believe is that fundamentally, if you can learn to use your voice, you can use that to influence other people. If you can influence other people, you can get everything you want in life. And that's just the way I see it, not just specific to business, but just in general life. If I want to find that, I've already got a wife, but if I suddenly something happened with me and my wife and I wanted to find somebody else, I need to be a good communicator. I need to be a good influencer. If I wanted to influence my kids, then I need to be a good influencer. If I want to influence my team, or influence prospects, or influence existing clients, which I have to do all of the time, I need to be able to be a good communicator and be able to influence other people. And so to answer your question, do people work on it enough? No, I don't believe they do. Is it really valuable? Well, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I like reading books, and one I read recently was called Imperium. Now, I thought it was just going to be a lovely yarn, but it was semi autobiography. It was about the Roman orator called Cicero. And what really interested me in him as a subject was that when he was a young man, he was absolutely rubbish at speaking, and he went off to Greece, of all places, to learn how to be a better orator. And he didn't like the flowery way the ancient Greeks used to speak, but he found someone he really liked, and he was given only two pieces of advice. It says, number one was make them laugh, make them cry, and then sit down and shut up. And the other one was people will never remember you for what you said, but you were they will remember you for how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering whether you would agree with any of the advice that he was given.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially with the advice of people will remember how you make them feel, right? It's kind of like I I was doing an exercise. I was reaching out to a bunch of my old clients recently, and one of the things I asked them, because as a high performance coach, it's not necessarily, yes, I work with CEOs, founders, business owners. It's not just the byproduct of the work I do is they probably make more money, they create more freedom, more balance, more autonomy, their business grows, etc. That's just a byproduct. But I asked the question of my clients recently is like, what's the real value that you got from working with me? And one of the particular clients came to me and he said, Jay, you're someone who clearly cares, right? I always got the feeling that you actually cared about us and you would give very freely. And that's something that I just really valued in what we did together. And I think that I made an impression on that individual and I changed. What they will always remember is how I made them feel. I made them feel like I cared about them. I didn't treat them like a number. And if we're bringing this to business, a lot of people have, I'm sure, been in different programs or invested in different things, or even it doesn't have to be in business, but I'm sure we've all invested in things and we didn't feel like people really cared about us. I went to a restaurant recently, and the waitress, it was just a very budget, like Toby Carvery. Me and my wife were like, we want a roast dinner. So the nearest one, we found it. And so we went there. And, Toby Carvery is very cheap and cheerful. And you don't expect unbelievable service. But the lady that came to serve us, she asked questions about our daughter and our son who was sat with us. She remembered their names. She was tentative. She communicated effectively. And me and my wife, I recall having a conversation. We'd be like, wow, she is really good. And she really cares. And I think that as I talk about it now, I remember that experience. And I don't remember her name. I don't remember anything else, but I remember how that experience made me feel. And I think that's what great communicators can do, is they can make you feel, I'd say, they can make you feel positive or negative emotions, but you probably want to make them feel the positive emotions, which is a rare skill to be able to do.
And one, presumably, that you can hone through practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication is a skill, right? It's absolutely a skill. No one comes out the womb and is all of a sudden an amazing communicator, knows how to influence people, knows how to make everyone feel. No, they don't. It's a learned skill. And so it's something that we can all get better at if we're willing to, number one, be open to learning about what's going on, and number two, be willing to take a long, hard look at ourselves and be willing to be, I think, messy in that process. Because as I said, no one comes out the womb and is all of a sudden an amazing communicator and can, make people feel amazing things. There's a art and a skill to it, and I think it's definitely something that people can learn over time.
Yeah. And I think that's really the message for people, isn't it? My grandmother always said to me, if you don't like, she loved playing cards, right? She says, if you don't like the deal again. If you don't like the cards, change the cards.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and I think that's true. I'm someone, as you can imagine, and you've known me long enough to know that I'd say that I think differently to a lot of different people. Like, what I see a lot of people doing is like, this is all I've got. This is a limited resource. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm powerless to do anything about it. Whereas my mindset is never that. It's never, oh, this is the deck, this is the deal, this is all I've got, can't change it, won't change it, all that sort of stuff. Like, and I think this is very much Carol Dweck's work around growth mindset, is like thinking into possible. I'm going, okay, I'm not happy about this. What can be done? What's possible? And I think that the thing that book in particular for Carol Dweck really highlighted for me is that as human beings, and I think we forget this over time, is we're powerful creators. We can create anything we want. We were talking about travel before. Me and my wife were just saying, hey, on Friday, should we go to Morocco for 5 days? That's blocked out of thin air, right? We weren't feeling what was going on here in the UK, so we can change the environment. And I think that not enough people see the world that way. And the reason they don't see the world that way is, their perspective on life, but it's because they do one of two things. And I won't dive too much into this to stay on topic, is they will make statements versus ask questions. So whenever we make a statement, it limits possibility. It stops us from dreaming. It stops us from creating. So for example, I don't have time. Right? Okay, I don't have time. You keep saying I don't have time. Guess what you're going to get? No time. Versus if you said, okay, I don't have time, and how could I make more time? How much time do I really need? What do I need time for? Right? And what that does is it opens up your psychology, it opens up your thinking, it opens you up to possibility. And that, if you can think like that, is an absolute beautiful gift, because you will never have a problem. Because you'll always be asking great questions that allow you to create in life.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good advice. Now, we both like, I think, sporting activity. I love racket sports, and I believe you like running. And a friend of mine also likes running. And one thing he often says to me about it is he likes to get into a good rhythm. And I see some parallels in sport to life and business, because a friend of mine, he loves certain destinations, and I said, well, why did you love it? And he said, well, this city just has a good rhythm to it. It just feels some sort of connection to it. So do you think being successful in business just requires an element of you looking to find your rhythm in your business, the things, to really hone the things that you're good at, and then go out in the world and find other people with rhythm, who are experts in the areas you're less good at? What do you think?
Yeah, so one of the questions that's often asked is, okay, well, what, like in my world, what is high performance, right? And more specifically, how do you create high performance? And the thing that I've always said is that in order to perform, if you want to perform at the highest possible level, the greatest thing you can do for yourself is get a deep understanding of who you are. And the more you understand yourself, the more you understand your strengths, the better you're going to be able to perform and create the results you really want. Now, there is a thought in business, which is often, and it depends on what stage you're at. If I'm in a position where I can afford to go and hire great people who are flowing with life, they have their expertise, they know their strengths, that they perform a good level and can execute on the challenge that I'm facing, then in the ideal world, of course, we're going to want to hire them. Of course, we should spend our time doing what we're really good at, our gifts, and lean on other people to support us in bringing together our vision and bringing it to life. But I think the reality is, for a lot of people, is that that isn't necessarily the possibility for where they're at, especially if they're in early stages of business, because there's another lesson that comes with this is, yes, they might not have the resources, but also when it comes to actually picking someone or hiring someone, how will they ever know what's good and bad work? How will they know what to look for and what not to look for if they've never even given it a go themselves? There's this mindset that you get, especially in earlier stage businesses. It's like, there's a mindset that's percolated around the business world is like, no, I shouldn't be doing this stuff. I should be hiring someone for this. And I absolutely see the merit in that. But actually, and so they want to avoid it. So they do things like they go, I'm going to hire someone to do lead generation. Hey, I'm going to hire someone to do my sales. Hey, I'm going to hire someone to do social media or whatever the thing is. And the challenge of that is they go and hire someone and I know what's going to happen. They come back 3 months later and say, oh, that didn't work. I invested a load of money and I got burned. Because they haven't actually figured out any kind of process for themselves. They don't know the difference between what's good and bad, and they don't know the right questions to ask of those people to qualify whether they're the right person for that job. And so my personal opinion is like, you need to get a deep understanding of yourself so you can perform, and do the things you absolutely love. But in understanding yourself, you can then get yourself to work through and do the things that you don't want to do, so that eventually when you get an understanding, I'm not saying you need to be an expert in all these things, but you can get an understanding of that stuff so that then you can hire out to the right people. And I remember, I think it was a quote from Jack Ma, who seems the founder of Alibaba. He said on a video, and I'll do a terrible version of this, but he basically said that he gets annoyed if his kids come home with A's, because he doesn't want his kids to be an expert in one area, because he wants to create entrepreneurs who have a broad perspective, and that makes it easier for them to flex and navigate in the world, to have conversations with anyone, not being an expert or a specialist in one single area. Now, I'm not saying there's no merit in that. I'm just thinking about it through the lens of a business owner. You don't necessarily want to be an expert in one area, unless that is, your business, right? You need to be someone who maybe has some expertise in a certain area, and that's what you lead with. But you need to, have a broader skill set as well, and knowledge as well, through actually having a go at things. And I think that's one of the things that, like, even a lot of my clients say to me is, Jay, someone literally said it to me this morning, Jay, you're really good at understanding people, but you also understand psychology, human behavior, marketing, business, and lots of other areas of life, which is what I love about you. But actually my core skill set is, I'm a high performance coach. I help people shift their psychology so they can get into focused action and create the results that they really want.
So you're absolutely right. You do need a broad outlook, and that certainly helps when thinking about all the areas of business that you can work in. Well, so the last area I wanted to ask you about before we leave each other is in service and travel as a general experience that we all have. Do you think people are served well? I read something really interesting this morning about. I was going to ask you something else, but I saw this and I thought, oh wow. They were talking about the power of first impressions versus how you help people later. That people can spend so much effort in obtaining your interest in me, but they don't spend enough time on retention. It was like I went to a local hotel once and I saw the manager, working really hard on what I would describe the dull, the boring, and the repetitive, and it made me think. Well, yeah, actually, I can't remember why I first liked going to that hotel, but the thing I do remember is all the things I don't see. So do you think people don't work enough on the afterwards and do too much on the before?
Yeah, that's marketing for you. I think that it's actually I don't want to use the word rare, but it is a rarity to see people who do what they say they're going to do. And I think that a lot of people are very focused on, getting people in, like from a business standpoint, getting people in the door, like getting the money in, but then they neglect they don't care enough about their people because they're chasing the next thing and growing the business. And it's in travel, we deal with all businesses all the time. It's exactly the same. So it's like they neglect the fulfillment side, they neglect the caring, because actually they're not going out to get something. I think this is one of the flaws of business, to be honest, in many respects. Like, it works and it doesn't. It's like, if you think about selling, most people are going out there to get something. They're going out there to get your money, to get you to buy from them so that they can grow as a business, so they can, have the money to hire new people, grow the business, grow the cash flow, whatever the thing is they're coming out. So the intention is to go out to get. Whereas very few people from a business standpoint are approaching it from a place of, I'm going to give. And I think that might not work for a lot of businesses, because a lot of businesses approach it from a place of get, because, hey, it's all well and good giving, but we're not a charity, right? We've got a business to run, we've got people to pay, right? So I'm not saying that, that can't work. There's different business models, but ultimately I think that not enough people approach business from a place of caring, from a place of giving. I think ultimately the intention is always to get something, and that drives so many decisions. And what ultimately happens is they promise the world on the front end, but don't necessarily deliver that high value experience on the back end, which leaves people feeling a lot very disappointed. And then that leaves people to then go and pursue their competitors or other people who might be promising. But ultimately, my experience is like, just because they have a high standard in marketing doesn't mean they have a high standard on the back end. And I've been in many different programs where they've promised the world but haven't delivered. And I don't think that you necessarily always have to deliver on the thing that you actually promise, which might sound a bit controversial. What I mean by that is, like you mentioned before, what was the quote you said? People don't remember what you say, but they remember how they feel. And I think that if you're the type of person that, even though you might not deliver the 100% end result, but you go above and beyond to help that person and you get to 80 or 90%, I think people value that more than people who just treat them like a number and then don't, just neglect their people. And I think the thing that I've really been talking about a lot recently is this concept of caring. I just think in business, too many people care about themselves, but they don't care about other people, really, because they're all trying to get something. I'm not sat here saying, I don't want to get something. I don't want to make money. I don't want to grow my life, support my family, have amazing experiences. But I think there's a fine balance that you must crack in business, which is, yes, going out there with the intention of building your business and growing. And, you need to build an audience, and you need to have conversation with those people. So there's always that, I do want to get something, but actually, if you combine getting with caring, then I think that is the winning formula that I think most people neglect. And I think that's what happens. It doesn't matter whether we're just talking about it in the context of, let's say, my coaching business, but also in the context of travel as well, because businesses support people's desire to travel.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think how people feel is something people really do value. Well, Jay, it's been amazing having a chat to you. I really appreciate you giving up your time to be with us. And yeah, do stay in touch. And yeah, very pleased that you were able to come and share your perspectives with us today.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me, Alex. It's been a pleasure.